That's really good. Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome to Stand Up Moto, and this is my review of the 2023 Suzuki VStrom 250 SX. If you're a return viewer, welcome back. If you're a new viewer to Stand Up Moto, please consider subscribing and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to have a pretty comprehensive look at Suzuki's smallest in their VStrom range, the 250 SX. This bike comes in at 6,500 Australian dollars. I'll put some other currencies up on the screen. I have it in the dirt, I put it on the freeway, I wind it through the hills. This really is a wonderful little package. I think Suzuki have nailed it with the look of this bike. I mean, it's got that traditional VStrom beak, it's got the stacked LED headlight, the right mix of colour, a black low slung guard, but you can still get a more aggressive tyre on there if you're looking to do a little bit more off-road type stuff. I just think it really looks neat. The smallest VStrom in Suzuki's range only comes in two colours, the Pearl Blaze Orange, which you'll see in this video, and the Champion Yellow, which, look, I've seen both colours, of course, and they look great. Powering the VStrom is a 250cc, actually 249cc. It's a single cylinder, it's a 4-stroke motor, it's oil cooled, so it doesn't have the cooling fins like you'd see on air-cooled motors. It's like a liquid cooled motor, but instead of it being water or coolant flowing around the motor, it's oil cooled, and it's got a little radiator, and we'll show you that over the other side in a minute. Single overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder. It produces about 26 horsepower at 9,300 RPM. Actually, you can see 249 written down there, cc's. 26 horsepower. It doesn't sound like a lot. Well, that's about 19.5 kilowatts. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it really powers this bike along well. And remembering that it's only 167 kilograms, it's 22.2 Newton meters of torque. So for a 250 single of this configuration, it really hauls well. So we'll give her a try 0 to 100 on the dirt. Now this bike's not fitted with traction control, so I just have to be a little bit careful with the clutch. Let's see how we go. 3, 2, 1. Hooked up a little bit there. Yeah, well, that's pretty respectable. I did get a bit of wheel spin when I took off, but that's not too bad. She's got a wet multi-plate clutch, nice and easy, and of course it's wet, so if you're doing stuff in and around sand or rocks or climbing hills, you can do plenty of clutch slippage, and that's not going to be a problem. Cable operated, so that's nice and simple if you're out in the field and you ever have an issue with a cable. Oil filter in here, 1, 2, take off the cap and yeah, change your oil filter. Nice, simple. Drain plug is down underneath. One of the things, if you've seen my previous videos, I love an oil window, and you can see down here, well, it's empty because it's over on the side. If I bring it up, you can see the oil fill the window there. So when the bike is in level configuration, sitting straight up and down, there's the high line, there's the low line. Absolutely no excuses for running this bike low on oil. In and around the city, which I guess is where most of these bikes will spend most of their time. I'm going to do some off-road in a minute, and this is where the bike really surprised me. But in town, it is, as you would expect, a very, very easy bike to live with. It is lightweight, it's a short wheelbase, it's manoeuvrable, the gearbox is slick, It just works well as a city commuter, or you might be riding it to and fro to work, whatever you may be doing. It is simple for filtering between the cars when you get to traffic lights. And before I get comments and emails telling me off for filtering, in my part of the world, filtering is 100% legal. You may lane filter between stationary or slow-moving traffic travelling in the same direction, provided you do not exceed 30 kilometres an hour. And this is actually a state government, you can see it at the bottom there, legislation, so it's more than legal. I know it is a point of contention with some states throughout the US and some parts of the world, but the theory here in Australia is that if you are directly behind a car and the car behind, I don't know, skids, loses traction, whatever, when they're coming to a stop, they will crush you. At least if you're moving down the centre or in the centre, you're not going to get crushed. I might do a video on that. U-turns, it is like easy peasy. Have a look at that. You can get it down to a walking pace, both feet on the pegs, and it will just turn around, just high side the body, slip the clutch a little bit. As far as parking, because the bike, well, it's so lightweight, it is super easy and simple to park. Just pull it up, back it in. I've got a bit of camber here helping me go back, but even if there wasn't, it will pull in and park very easily. It is a pleasure to ride in town. It really is. Something Suzuki did here in Australia for people that pre-ordered the bike, so that's before they got to Australia, was they supplied this little top box, and it's a neat little top box. Push there, up she comes. It's got a bit of gear in there at the moment, but little strap, and it's always nice to be able to put things on the back. To remove it, it's just really push that plug there, up it comes and off, and it leaves this quite tidy little back plate. So I ordered this bike, pre-ordered it online, so click and she's on. And you know, it's always nice to get a freebie. The all-important sound check. What does it sound like? Look, it's very quiet. There it is at idle, and if I just give it a bit of a rev, surprisingly, it's very quiet sitting here, but when you're riding it, it's actually got a really good note. I think a lot of that is coming from the induction system as well, but I don't know if you can hear in any of the shots I've done when you're riding. It's got quite a nice note, but it is very quiet, and that muffler is, I think, pretty vulnerable out there. But I mean, that's the sort of thing anyone can change. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this muffler. It looks nice, but it is too bulky, it is down too low, and it is set too far forward. When you're doing this tight technical type riding, and I tend to throw my body all over the place and drop the bike into the tight turns, keep the body upright, I come up onto the ball of my foot, and of course my heel is back further. And in this case, it's hitting the muffler every time I do it. The muffler needs to be slimmer and back out of the way. If you run a GPS or your telephone on the bike, Suzuki have fitted the VStrom with a USB outlet. It's a little USB-A, as you can see there. It has a nice rubber seal. It is illuminated, so if you're trying to get to it at night, just a nice little feature. Gearbox is a 6-speed manual. Nice first gear. You can climb up the side of mountains, I think I mentioned that. And top gear allows you to cruise at highway speeds. That all works well, and when you come to a stop, it's easy to select neutral. I know some bikes aren't, but in the 2,000 odd kilometres or 1,200 miles that I've been riding this bike so far, I haven't missed a gear, which is good. Little electric starter motor there, remembering there is no kickstarter. It's electric only. You can see the oil return line here. Actually, no, I think it's a pressure line. And spark plug, nice and simple to get to on the side if you need to change your plug, although that doesn't seem to be an issue nowadays, does it, with standard fuel. A side stand has a nice big kick bar on the side of the side stand, which is good. And it has the switch there, so you can't accidentally start or put the bike into gear with the side stand down. Bit of a safety measure. Up in the cockpit itself, yeah, look, it's all pretty straightforward. Turn the ignition on. There's your start stop over this side, or your ignition kill, I should say. There's your start button, but interestingly, if you push the start button now, you can see it's in neutral. I don't know if you can hear that or not. All you can hear is the fuel pump go. You do have to pull in the clutch in order to start it. So yeah, a little safety feature they've fitted to the clutch over here, but start button, engine kill here, high beam, low beam, pass light, indicators, push to cancel, horn, hydraulic front disc brake. I'll come up closer to the panel in a minute and show you that. But yeah, pretty straightforward and pretty simple really. Oh, the bars. Now, I'm going to show you a little segment that I filmed on the bars. I fitted these bars myself. I really did not like the standard bars that the bike came with. They were just angled down too much. Well, I'll show you here. The bars that come standard on the VStrom, I think angle down too far on the ends. I found myself getting sore wrists. I think there's just too much bend in the handlebar here. You can see with the overlay of bars that I've sat in front of it, they are up higher, more traditional style. Actually, what I've done here is taken a still shot of them sitting on the bench, the standard bars at the top, the replacement bars at the bottom. I also put on a set of bar risers, just 7/8 Motor Wolf risers. They brought the bars up an inch and back an inch. Here they are here. They even come with the Allen key and bolts. And if you're going to do this mod, this is the model of handlebar here in Renthal. Not cheap, but for my purposes, I think well worth the money. It just makes that seating position a bit better. Now, 2-up. What's it like riding 2-up? So a quick acceleration test, 0 to 100 or a little over 60 mile an hour.
Slip of the clutch a bit there.
This little motor just loves to rev.
That's pretty good.
Front suspension is coil, oil dampened, right way up hydraulic forks. Look, they're good. They don't have a lot of travel. I think it was about 5 inches of travel in them. They are soft, so you won't be doing any tabletops on this bike. I guess it's not designed for that. The flip side is that on bumpy dirt roads and undulating bitumen, it absorbs everything. You're certainly not going to get fatigued in a hurry. I think you're about 42 mil or something like that, 41 mil. Yeah, look, forks are okay, so long as you don't get too serious and too heavy with them. You can see a little horn across here. The oil cooler is in behind there. It has a metal guard on the oil cooler, which is good. I mean, some bikes don't even come with a guard over there, over the oil cooler. This one comes standard with a metal guard, so rocks and whatnot, although the guard comes down pretty well and covers it. But if you were to catch a rock, maybe you're following another bike, you should have a fair bit of protection on that oil cooler. Rear suspension, as you can see down in here, is the single monoshock, pretty well standard across most of this style of bike now. Adjustable preload, but there's no compression dampening or anything like that on it. Yeah, look, it's not bad. It hangs on fairly well. Once again, it's not a motocross rear shocker, but neither is the bike. One thing that is nice is this rear hugger. That comes standard on the bike. Actually, looking at that, it's part of the... it's all part of the one moulding as a chain guard. But yeah, nice to have a rear hugger on here. It stops all that rubbish being thrown off of the tyre onto the shocker shaft itself. And once again, plenty of clearance if you decide to go for a more aggressive tyre. So we're moving along here at about 100 kilometers per hour. I've just frozen the film so you can see the weight distribution is pretty good. The rear suspension is handling 2 people very well. I mean, there's an enormous amount of weight on the back of this bike, and yet it is well balanced from a rider's point of view. It's great. I was pleasantly surprised with how well it rode with a passenger on board. Not just the power, but also the handling and the suspension's ability to take up that extra weight. Time for a coffee, and then what we'll do is have a quick look at the brakes. And don't you love this free parking for motorcycles in the city? It's very hard to get parks nowadays if you're in motor cars, but most cities have got easy and free parking for bikes. So yeah, have a quick cuppa and then we'll have a look at the brakes. A 240mm drilled disc rotor on the rear with a single piston Bybree brake caliper. Yeah, look, they work pretty good. It's got ABS, as you can see, unfortunately not switchable. The rear tyre is a 140/70/17 and it's a Mo Grip Meteor. To be honest, I've never heard of them before, but I have to say they work pretty well. For a standard issue tyre, they're not bad. Alloy rims on the VStrom front and rear. I know KTM have been running these alloy spoked, well, no, they're not really spokes, are they? Yeah, I suppose they are spokes, alloy spokes, but unlike the traditional metal wire spokes, these are the alloy spokes, and to my knowledge, KTM have had no issues with these wheels. They're tubeless, of course, powder coated, certainly easy to clean. The first time I have had the alloy spoked wheels, as in this type of wheel, on a dual purpose bike. Up the front, a 310mm rotor with the Bybree dual piston caliper with ABS. And look, I have no complaints about the brakes at all. They work fine. Did we have a look at that already? If not, we'll have a look at it in a minute. It really pulls this bike up. Remembering, it's not that heavy. It's a fairly light bike and it pulls the bike up without any worries at all.
I'm going to try out the ABS on the dirt. See how it works. Some bikes don't like this. Now, I'll deliberately put it on the loose stuff here. What am I doing? 100 kilometres an hour. That's a little over 60 mile an hour. Front and rear. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1. Wow. That's really good. That is surprising. I still had to put some effort into keeping it in a straight line, but that's really good on gravel. And as you can see here, can I get the camera down? I was on the loose pebbly stuff. Of course, if I was on the more trod-in section, it'd be easier, but we don't want to do that, do we? Don't want to do everything easy.
Foot pegs are good, nice and broad and foldable, of course. I have removed the rubbers out of these, the street rubbers, 2 little bolts underneath because I've been doing mainly dirt work, but they're good. Yep, rear brake, as you can see here, non-foldable. It has this little wire around it. I haven't had that on a bike before, just stops your toes from moving in towards the motor. The rear brake reservoir is nicely protected behind the foot peg mount on the rear.
Okay. This time on the bitumen, we'll check we're clear behind. Yep, clear in front. 100 kilometres an hour. 3, 2, 1. That is spectacular. I tell you what, these Bybrees, I'm still in top gear there and I've got to shift down. These Bybree brakes really are a treat.
ABS, which I did say is non-switchable. You don't really need or want to switch it on the front, but on the rear it's not. Front tyre is that Mo Grip Meteor again. It's a 190/19 with the alloy rims. And originally I was going to change these tyres pretty well straight away when I got the bike, but they seem to work all right. I mean, you wouldn't want to get too serious with them, I guess, in sand work, although I've done a bit of sand. Plenty of clearance here, if and when you do want to put a more aggressive tyre on, remembering that it's a trail bike, so these were designed for road, trail, cross type work. LED front headlights, and if I just turn the ignition on, they look great. As I say, I love this stacked look, and high beam is the center. You'll see that lights up. Get a bit of shade on there. They're pretty good headlights, and that's a standard thing on the bike. I love the look of the front of this bike. Fuel capacity wise, 12 litres, reverse hinging fuel cap, one of my pet hates. But anyway, yeah, 12 litres, good seal on here. And what does it burn? Look, as an average, while I've been doing my riding on this trip around, or in the last couple of thousand kilometres or 1,200 mile, I've averaged around 3 litres per 100 kilometres. I mean, that's, what is that? That's about 33 kilometres to the litre, or if you're talking US miles to the gallon, 75, probably a bit more than that actually, probably around 77, 78 mile to the gallon. Or if you're talking UK, that's over 90 mile to the gallon. It's It is crazy fuel efficient. I did notice at the moment I'm showing 3.5 litres per 100, but that's fair enough because I've just been riding it in the sand and up and around the rocks, as we have already seen or we're about to see. So it's crazy fuel efficient. On the unsealed roads and dirt roads, it is fine. It has a good weight distribution front to rear, and that 19-inch front wheel combination tends to work very well on this loose, marbly stuff. You can see here it's quite loose, and yet the front end is hanging on. Sweet spot speed-wise is a little over 60 mile an hour, that 100 kilometres per hour. It just works well. The seat itself, nice and broad at the rear where you're sitting here. It's super comfy. They've got the density just right in the seat. You can buy a lower seat. As I said, I think it's about inch and a quarter, 30 odd mil lower to bring it down if the bike is too tall for you. But yeah, it's so comfy, and it narrows off at the front. So when you're standing on the pegs and your knees come up to here, there's no knee pad. Well, there is knee pads. They're too low for standing, but you'd put a set of stick-ons, I guess, here. But it allows you to get your legs in and move left to right when you're doing that slow standing work on the pegs. Some of these trail bikes, you can't stand on the pegs properly. This one, you certainly can. Rear seat comes off. I've already put the key in the slot there. Turn that, lift her at the front. That comes out. There's a little toolkit underneath the seat here. That Allen key is for my bike busters. Nothing worse than when you're out and about and you lay the bike down, or it comes off, whatever it might be, and you move your bike busters and you can't get them back into the right position. So I keep the appropriate Allen key in there. What's in there? Phillips head, flat head, plug spanner, and I think a 10 and a 12 mil. So basic little toolkit. I would rig, of course, the bike up with my own toolkit, and there is enough room to do that here. There's quite a reasonable little storage area. I suppose it's for your books and that sort of thing, but yeah, that's where I will have a toolkit, and you could put a little emergency drink. The seat just goes under those two, clip, and it's back on. So what's the little Susie like when we hit a little bit of, well, let's say, hard terrain? Well, that's an hour of pumping the VStrom through some pretty hostile terrain, and I am overwhelmed at just how well it performed. Remembering this is a road trail bike. It's not an off-road enduro bike. It's not a CRF or a DR, larger capacity bikes that are made for specifically off-road riding. This is a trail bike. It has a 19-inch front wheel, road trail bias tyre. And of course, the advantage of having those road trail tyres, this front tyre on this bike is 190/19. It is a big tyre for the size and weight of this bike. It allows you to exit freeways on the exit ramps and still carry your speed. You come down here under brakes, as we said, those Byberries work well, negotiate the roundabout without any feeling that the front is going to slip away underneath you. It really performs well. First gear, there's no need to alter the gearing on this. Top gear gives you highway cruising speed. By highway cruising speeds, in my part of the world, that is 110 kilometres per hour, just shy of 70 mile an hour. I sat here for about an hour and it performed fine. There wasn't a lot of acceleration there at this speed. You do need to drop a gear. Fuel burn went up a little bit, but it handles it, no worries. First gear allows it to climb up the side of mountains. It is just amazing. The suspension is very soft and limited. So instead of hitting heavy terrain at pace, just slow down a little bit and pick your way through on the rock. The windscreen, something you will very rarely hear me say. They have got the windscreen, for me anyway, just about
perfect. I get no buffet at all. It breaks the wind on the chest, and yet my helmet is in free air. I do sit reasonably tall on the bike, but the screen is a little ripper. It's non-adjustable, so you can't adjust it up or down. But one of the good things is when you get up on the pegs like this, so you're working your way through some awkward terrain and you're up on the pegs, you can look over and see the track of the front wheel. So I often come to a stop, front brake, rear brake, and I'm just sort of doing this up on the pegs while I work out my line if I'm getting through some awkward areas. So yeah, the screen is great.
And this is that slow, technical type riding that I'm talking about. I mean, you have to be careful. That's about a 20-foot drop off there. But you can bring the bike to a stop, keep both feet on the pegs, get your balance momentum right, have a look over at the front wheel, and then pick your line and then move off with slipping the clutch. Because you don't have the clearance. It's got reasonable clearance, but it is limited. So rather than compress that suspension down over the rocks, slow down, pick your way through. It will raise your skills. It really is a wonderful little bike.
Nice.
So my final thoughts on the Suzuki VStrom 250 SX. Look, this is a terrific little package. And I know people are going to compare this with maybe the Honda CRF 300 Rally, or maybe, as I also own, a WR 250 in the Yamaha range, maybe even the DRZ. But they are totally different bikes in that they are more aggressive off-road bikes. They have the larger 21-inch front wheel, and they're almost twice the price. This is a brand new bike at a used bike price. You can work on it yourself. Even the valve adjustment is simple, nut and screw. Oil changes, simple. I think the overall package of this is what makes it so appealing. And of course, the price. You can ride it to and fro to work on a weekday, and then you can head off and do a bit of trail riding or have an adventure on the weekend. You don't have to be 6'4". This is a lightweight, easy to manage bike that has good brakes. It has the safety features of ABS, and it also, in my part of the world, has the registration cost of 250 cc's. Now, that may not mean a lot depending on where you're located, but in my part of the world, as I said, that is the lowest cost registration available. This is a terrific little bike at a terrific price, and if you are in the market for such a machine, I would say just put your hand in your pocket.